Empire actor Jussie Smollett is charged with a felony. What is going to happen with the Mueller probe? And President Obama offers some advice to young men out in California.
Team Rising is going to tackle all of that and more. We've got on deck Executive Director of PowerTheFuture.com, Daniel Turner, and Democratic strategist Jeff Bergen. He previously served as the communications director for Andrew Gillum. Welcome to both of you guys. First timers on the show.
Great to have you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be
I'm
here.
liking this vibe already, though.
I know. It's got a good vibe. I'm like, wait, were they here when I wasn't here, though? I hate when I do that. Welcome, first time. They're like, actually, I've done the show 3 times, but you were on vacation. Ooh. Okay, so tell me this. What do you think about, let's start with you, sir. What do you think about the Jussie Smollett situation as it stands right now?
What a disaster this has been. I don't understand his desire to be a victim, if it's true, if it really was a staged attack.
He's been arrested.
So it looks like it.
I'm pretty sure the cops wouldn't arrest the hate crime victim if they didn't have good stuff on
Yeah.
it.
What really bothers me about it is Chicago, sadly, is known to be a high crime city. And I looked at Chicago PD statistics. Since his accusation of the 29th of January, 94 people have been shot in Chicago. 16 of them died. No idea how many have been raped, stabbed, mugged. I come from Queens, New York. People get mugged all the time. There were 12 cops assigned to Jussie Smollett.
Wow.
How many cops were assigned to any of those crimes? How many moms and dads are wondering about justice for their kids?
The Chicago clearance rate on homicides, by the way, is alarmingly low. Yeah. So there is a resource strain, and they obviously have much higher profile. Real cases, including homicides, that they should be focusing on.
Well, it's a real case now.
It is a real case now. Jeff, I know there are going to be some people who say that there should be leniency, and obviously Jussie Smollett's got problems, and there's going to be this whole discussion. But if we're going to take hate crimes seriously as a society, don't we also have to take, which we should, don't we also have to take false hate crimes seriously?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to get all of these facts. I mean, what's clear is that this situation from the, almost just after the get-go, has become very muddled, very confusing, and he needs to have his day. He needs to have his day in court.
I mean, you've seen the video of the 2 Nigerian brothers buying MAGA hats and ski masks,
look,
right?
it's, and look, I'm not here. I'm not here to be judged.
There is a presumption of innocence, but I think we're beyond
Look, and I think you speak to a bigger point. We do need to believe victims, and we need these resources to be used appropriately. What if in fact it comes out that this was completely concocted? We've got a really bad problem on our hands because it makes it that much harder for victims of hate crimes to come forward. And unfortunately, we've seen an uptick in those hate crimes in recent years.
And Jeff, one thing that the part of the reason why this is such a thing, I mean, it touches on everything, like race and MAGA and sexuality. I mean, it's just like every third rail in politics, just like both hands on, right? Yeah. But one of the arguments that my friend Buck and others in conservative media have been making is that the media, this was way too convenient for the stereotypes that the media wanted to play. I mean, what I saw personally was a media that was somewhat careful about the story from the beginning. What's your view, though? How do you think the media handled this? What should they learn from this? I
think they had police reports at the beginning that indicated, look, there'd been a serious crime here. This is a person that's high profile. This is a person who plays a out gay actor on television. It didn't strain credulity to think that perhaps he had been attacked. But ultimately, I think what we need to remember is that what always happens on Twitter in the first 3 hours after something gets reported doesn't always end up being the facts.
I think
we're all a little too quick to grab our phones and plug in a couple of characters, send off some
Just
thoughts.
real quick, Daniel, I mean, in my opinion, I was watching the local Chicago media, local CBS affiliate, other reporters, Chicago Tribune. Yeah. They were doing, I think, a very good job on this one. It was the national media that gets influenced much more quickly, I believe, by this Twitter conversation that was, it's not enough to run this story, not use the word allege, and then have a panel of 5 people just talk about how horrible it is. Local news reporters were saying, well, the police have some skepticism here, folks. So I think they did a better job.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about bias. Of course there's bias because we're all humans and we all have our point of view and our own way of looking at the world. But there were media who were willing to jump on this, just like there were media who were willing to jump on the Covington Catholic kids. So I think it's a good check for all media, Fox News to CNN, to say, how are we looking at all of these cases? How are we looking at our job as journalists? And maybe we should tone down the heat before we rush to judgment.
You want to take Mueller endgame? You got it?
Indeed. So Washington Post and CNN, possibly others, but definitely those 2 outlets, are reporting that Attorney General Bill Barr is preparing to announce as early as next week the completion of Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. A report will go to Barr. Barr then will decide what happens next. what's your prediction here? How does this play out? What is the public actually going to learn?
I sure hope that Bill Barr, the Attorney General, has respect for the rule of law and the issue of transparency here. We'll see. I know one thing is that no matter what happens in the next week, we haven't heard the last of this. The Southern District in New York will make sure that we haven't heard the last of this story.
Daniel, I mean, do you hope, as someone who's coming from the, from right of center, do you hope that whatever's in this report is made public? Because what I said earlier is, whatever it says, I just think the public needs to see it. Otherwise, it's going to spawn a million conspiracy theories, probably on both sides.
Absolutely. I'm in favor of transparency, and grief, in the 5 stages of grief, resolution and acceptance is the 5th stage. So maybe with this report being published, maybe we're there. And I mean, it's been 2 years plus of this. I think we need to move on. So put everything out there, but really put everything out there, because there's an awful lot of information that people on the right would say, well, what about the origins of the dossier? What about the collusion of the previous administration, et cetera, et cetera? So if we're going to put everything out there, let's put everything out there.
What do you mean by collusion of the previous administration?
Well, look at the amount of, what was the funding of the dossier, right? Was it really funded by the Clinton campaign? Was there collusion between the Obama FBI and the Obama DOJ and the Clinton campaign to create this phony Russian dossier, to put it? Those are all questions that are being asked. So if we're going to ask all the questions and want to look at all the facts, let's look at all the facts.
So President Obama continues to be obviously heavyweight in American politics. All his movements are
really
in words.
American culture now as well.
Yes.
I mean, with Netflix and the book, I mean
absolutely,
that, and the
both
culture
Obamas,
more broadly.
in fact, we did a poll with Michelle Obama, and she'd be the presidential frontrunner on the Democratic
She'd
side,
have my
where
vote
she'd
right
run. But there was an interesting moment. The president did a town hall with Steph Curry, Golden State Warrior, with a lot of young black men as part of his My Brother's Keeper program. And it was funny because it just, at least for me, reminded me how sort of fundamentally conservative the president can be in his family life and very sort of traditional family values. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what he was saying to these young men.
I think we live in a culture where a lot of times we are measured, our worth is measured by how much money we have and how famous we are. And I will tell you that at the end of the day, the thing that will give you confidence is not that, because I know a lot of rich people who are all messed up. And I know a lot of famous people who are all messed up. We both do.
Yeah, I know a lot of rich people are
By
all
the way,
messed up too.
there was
That's fair.
even, I mean, I saw more of this yesterday. He talked about how you shouldn't feel, your masculinity shouldn't be defined by having 5 women around you twerking. In a video.
Yep.
I think that's
Very conservative sentiment.
Hats off to Obama. Look, his family life and family values as he lived them and on display were always a place where even the most lunatic right-wing people that I know were like, he's good on that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, but isn't it ironic, Jeff, that you see this president who was so hated by the, family values, traditional conservative right, and now you have a president who was like the complete opposite. I mean, multiple wives, affairs, paying off porn stars, all the rest, and that's their guy. Yeah,
I mean, the biggest scandal of the Obama administration was that tan suit, which I think was a fantastic look for him. I don't know about you. I thought it was a fantastic suit. It's hypocrisy at its finest, and I think President Obama is well within his rights to speak his mind, to speak freely. He's clearly enjoying his post-presidency. I mean, look at the black bomber jacket he had on at the Duke Carolina game last night. I mean, the man is really living. And he's speaking his mind, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. Daniel, what do you make of that kind of difference between those two presidents?
Stark contrast, without a doubt. But look, President Obama is doing a perfect post-presidency, right? I think it's wonderful that out of office, elevate the conversation to the great things about our country, about values, about culture. We don't want our post-presidents or presidents who retire or any of our cabinet members to go overseas and to bash the country, bash the current administration, right? When you're done with being in office, I think it's time to elevate and raise the conversation, and I love that's what he's doing.
Perfect post-presidency. There you go, Buck. Thanks, guys.
Great to have you. I don't even know what to say. So I'm just going to let that fly. Thanks, guys.
Coming up on Rising, it was a statement heard on Twitter nationwide. I just want some ranch.
Blue cheese is so much better. Coming up, the 22-year-old who interrupted Kirsten Gillibrand in an Iowa restaurant tells us in her own words how that all played out when Rising continues.